This building is part of America's history. When it was built in 1888, it was, by far, the tallest building in Kansas City, probably the tallest building in the West. With its 10 stories, it was the city's first skyscraper. Its boldness and artistic details were symbols of a city poised for progress. The building's size and quality were powerful signals that Kansas City was ready to move on to the next century, an era that would be marked by astonishing change. A local history described the Kansas City of the time as a city sprung up from the confluence of trails and rivers, proclaiming itself to the world at the first flicker of a dawning new century. And this new office building was among the brightest of those first flickers of the 20th century. But sadly, as the 20th century moved towards midpoint, the structure, known originally as the New York Life Building, aged and almost died. I'm William Shatner, and this is a story about one of the most interesting office buildings in America. How it came to life, nearly died, and was recently reborn. It's going to be my pleasure to show you around this unusual building so you can see for yourself why it was important to save it from destruction. The site chosen for the building, the intersection of West 9th and Baltimore Streets, was at the center of the city's growth. Baltimore Street had just recently been cut from the stone bluffs above Main Street, where only a few years before, drovers and their herds arrived from the far west. When it was completed, 20 West 9th was the tallest building in Kansas City. Its 10 stories guaranteed it pride of place as the first skyscraper to rise in Kansas City's skyline. At the time, there were no buildings in the city taller than 4 stories. In reality, 20 West 9th was Kansas City's entire skyline. From the top of the new structure, you could see far beyond the bend of the Missouri River to the north, and far over the rolling hills and croplands of Missouri and Kansas. There was something symbolic about those wide vistas from the point where the ambitious East met the Wild West. It was a time when horses pulled the trolley cars, gas lamps lit the buildings, and mules hauled the wagons. It also was a time when a new nation was about to be transformed radically by such things as railroads, assembly lines, and electrical power. The building's location, at the hub of the city's cable car lines, placed it at the center of action, and its features made it state-of-the-art office construction. For example, it incorporated one of the early uses of steel and structural I-beams in the U.S. The impressive new building at 20 West 9th was a strong signal that the region, later to be known as America's heartland, was ready and eager to move on to a new century. Those who came and went at 20 West 9th were movers and shakers of their time. They were the people who had transformed a Wild West frontier town of Wyatt Earp and Jesse James into a city beginning to attract investment from the business centers of America's East. Kansas City was emerging as the geographic hub of the nation, and 20 West 9th stood tall at the center of that hub. The building was designed by the famous New York City architectural firm of McKim, Mead, and White. Although it's not clear who did the actual design work, Stanford White, among the most famous American architects of the time, was closely involved. He is known for many landmarks, such as Boston's Trinity Church, as well as Villard houses and the original Madison Square Garden in New York City. The structure's classical Italianate architecture was both elegant and robust, qualities that characterized many of Stanford White's works. But if the architectural approach had classical European roots, the core strength of this building was strictly American. Outside millwork cut in Boston, bricks fired in a special kiln close to the building site, and the huge foundation stones quarried from within a mile of the construction. A diary kept by one worker says that it took 4 mules to haul each stone to the excavation. The red marble was quarried in Vermont, the pink marble in Tennessee. Classic Corinthian columns support the entry, and elegant Ionic columns, the magnificent ceiling of the main lobby. One of the most interesting of the building's decorative details is the floor where I'm standing, believed to be similar to a floor in New York City's Vanderbilt mansion. The original marble tiles were all imported from Italy, as were the craftsmen who were brought to Kansas City to create this unique entrance and main lobby floor. Their work was painstaking. There are about 160 individual tiles in each square foot, and the workers could lay only a few feet of the mosaic pattern in a day. Many of the Italian artisans who created the floor mosaic settled in Kansas City, and some of their descendants now will have an opportunity to continue enjoying the beauty of their forebears' work. The decorative cast iron stair railings and the graceful structure supporting the barrel vault ceiling add rich, contrasting colors to the various shades of marble used in the building's first floor. Most decorative woodwork in the building is cherry. Many of the office workers must have wondered how they could be expected to get up and down the building's 10 stories. And the answer was the first office elevator system in the city. The original coal-fired heating plant was augmented by beautiful copper-coated cast iron fireplaces at the corners of each floor. One can imagine workers pausing there on an especially cold day, making it a gathering place comparable to the water cooler or coffee machine of later eras. The outside of 20 West 9th is as artful as its interior, with gracefully rounded windows and intricate cornices at several levels. The most visually arresting of those cornices is at the very top of the building. An elaborate terracotta design creates a fitting crown for the building that has been looked up to by Kansas Cityans for more than 100 years. Like most of the finished products for the building, the terracotta tiles were produced in the East. But the most noteworthy feature of the building's exterior is the dramatic 2-ton bronze eagle positioned over the main entrance. The eagle is depicted with its wings spread in a protective posture over a nest containing 2 eaglets. Reporting the installation of the eagle, the Kansas City Star newspaper said, "With block and tackle, a team of strong horses, and a half a dozen strong men, an immense eagle was induced to perch on the arch over the entrance." To this day, there remains some uncertainty as to whether the eagle was designed by Augustus St. Gaudens, considered to be among the finest American sculptors of his time, or his brother Louis, who often helped on major projects and who produced important works on his own. One thing is clear, however. The powerful imagery of this huge eagle with its 10-foot wingspan was an indication of the tone of the times in Kansas City. Now, let's look at another aspect of the life of this beautiful building, events that were to play an important role in its destiny. When the century began, the structure at 20 West 9th was the premier office site in the city. But as Kansas City rose like a tide around the building, fate was shaping events that dramatically altered the future of 20 West 9th. Not far from the confluence of rivers that was becoming Kansas City, a man named Lemuel Green began a family tradition that would eventually change the destiny of 20 West 9th. His roots in the area were new but strong, and the values he was to instill in his family would play importantly in creating the second life of 20 West 9th. In 1877, Lemuel's father had settled in north-central Kansas with his wife and 2 sons. As the oldest child in a family that eventually included 4 brothers and 3 sisters, Lemuel not only helped work the farm, he worked off-the-farm jobs, including one in a nearby mill. Lemuel's enterprise paid off, and in time, he traded the homestead and timber rights he had accumulated for ownership of a flour mill. The flour mill generated the capital to acquire the water-powered mill where he had once worked as an employee. In 1902, a little more than a dozen years after 20 West 9th was built, Lemuel organized the steam-powered milling company at Osborne, Kansas, and it was there that Lemuel installed his first electric generator. That began a Green Family Association with the business of supplying energy to a rapidly growing community. At that time, 20 West 9th was the premier business address in Kansas City. Among its tenants were the U.S. Trust Company, the Kansas City School of Law, and the local office of the building's architects, McKim, Mead, and White. In a more down-to-earth vein, a corner of the building's basement housed a bookmaker's office considered by most at the time to be a wholly reputable occupation. As the century advanced through the 1920s and 30s, the stature of the building at Baltimore and 9th Streets continued to increase, and tenants that were to become important parts of the nation's business history were added. Among them were the Kellogg Toasted Cornflake Company, the Midland Flour Milling Company, and Trans World Airlines. But as the Green family's business of supplying electricity continued to grow, new, more impressive buildings began to appear around 20 West 9th, and the city's center was moving south. By the 1940s, the building's position as Kansas City's premier office location had faded. Then time and neglect began to take their toll. Several attempts to refurbish the building failed, until finally, the building was abandoned by 1987. The interior was actually exposed to the elements through broken windows, and an area where the original roof had been removed during a renovation that was never completed. 20 West 9th was teetering on the point of no return. It was at this point that the paths of the 4th generation of the Green family crossed with the path of 20 West 9th. By now, Lemuel's great-grandsons, Rick and Bob, had become the senior executives of Utilicorp United, the company that had evolved from the family's business ventures begun almost a century before. It was the decision of the company headed by Lemuel Green's great-grandsons to purchase 20 West 9th, renovate it, and make it the world headquarters of Utilicorp United. That decision saved this historic and beautiful building. The family's emphasis on core values played an important role in saving this irreplaceable beauty for the future.
We really looked at this building, this 20 West 9th Street building, is giving it a second life, and in doing that, it really was an extension of our company values as well as a reinvestment in the community.
The New York Life building presented a unique opportunity for us to preserve a landmark building for Kansas City, while at the same time creating a showplace for environmentally responsible and energy-efficient technologies. We were also able to transform the building for the 21st century, not unlike the old New York Life building transforming this community for the 20th century nearly 100 years ago.
What was exciting for us was to understand the people that built this building, the first tenants in this building, and their attitudes toward their community, toward their country. It was upbeat, it was enthusiasm, there was excitement in the potential of what could be done. We think of ourselves that way in what we do today, not only in the community, in this country, or in our business lives. And it is that leads us to rebuild and bring a second life back to 20 West 9th. It's a way we can show that enthusiasm. And this being our corporate headquarters, it gives us a great opportunity to fuse those timeless values, those positive, good attitudes with leading edge technology, so that this building is a lot like the company it houses.
Having been born and raised in this city with a real affection for our town, it's a thrill and a privilege to be able to preserve a building like this for the next century.
In November 1995, Utilicorp United officially announced that it would relocate its world headquarters to 20 West 9th. After being vacant for more than 6 years, the future of Kansas City's first skyscraper was bright again.
A building like this, which reaches back into the late 1880s when construction started, connects us to a very important period in the history of Kansas City. The architects rose to the challenge, as did the building owners. And the result is that they did, as far as I'm concerned, everything right, keeping in mind that they had to make some very important changes to make it a useful building for the 21st century. It's a demonstration of how an old building can look like it did when it was initially built.
One of the most exciting things about this story is that not only is the irreplaceable beauty of the building being preserved, the basic soundness of the original design has been used to create a state-of-the-art office building.
When we were developing the design of the building, we wanted to analyze the overall concepts that were originally developed by McKim White. They were one of the leading architects internationally at the time, and the New York Life building was developed through a design competition that they had won, showing their expertise of design at the time. What we found out through the analysis of the building, we found out that they were, at that time, on the leading edge of technology by the development of their techniques of natural daylighting, the overall design of the building, and just the way it was developed. It was a very elegant, well-designed building. What we wanted to do is play off on that design when we got involved and try to enhance that design even further with our use of modern-day technologies.
20 West 9th has been transformed into a modern workplace suitable to a leading-edge company. Now, because of the building's exceptional energy efficiency and environmentally beneficial design, it's once again a leading-edge office building. The open office design of workspaces facilitates interaction among workers and utilizes floor space more efficiently than conventional office layouts. The H shape of the building not only provides structural strength, its many windows are a source of natural light.
The original H shape in the building really related to the design of buildings back in 1880s. It was a very typical plan to either use an H or to use an O shape and plan by developing light courts that would allow natural reflective light to come to the interior of the buildings.
The daylight from the windows is dispersed throughout the work areas by light shelves and specially shaped ceilings. Electronic sensors control both light and temperature levels, especially interesting in a building that was built before electricity became a practical energy source. A gas heating system has been combined with an electric cooling system that creates ice each night during off-peak energy periods. During the day, the ice-chilled air is used to cool the work areas.
What we wanted to do is allow our peak demands to flatten out in a curve so that we could buy energy when we needed it to cool the building and not pay higher costs. Use the least amount of energy as well as the most raw basic materials as much as possible that come from the earth. Embodied energies is the use of the existing energies that have been used in the development of the original design and construction of the building. The cutting down of a tree or the firing of a brick that was done in 1888. These energies were something that were developed early on. They were brought in the building and they were kind of a low energy usage type material. The selections of the woods in the building, they were developed through natural forests here locally, meaning that they are forested from harvested forests versus going to a rainforest in South America or Africa.
The renovated interior contains a series of built-in chutes that facilitate the recycling of paper, glass, plastic, and aluminum. State-of-the-art telecommunications systems with fiber optic terminals allow the new occupants of 20 West 9th to travel the communications superhighway at high speed. Two special features of the building are the Creative Energy Center and the Visitor Center. This unique area tells visitors the story of 20 West 9th and how ongoing values can converge with practical business sense to the benefit of the entire community.
Too often, preservation projects are viewed as something that you get lower rent out of. They're difficult, they're cobbled together as best one can under the circumstances of tearing into an old building. This building is very competitive on a bottom line basis with new construction, and yet it provides all of these extraordinary amenities. The things that employees really want, the windows, the woodwork, the marble, high ceilings, the things that simply are no longer feasible as tenant amenities in new construction are here, but the bottom line advantages of new construction are also here.
It also tells the story of the development of efficient and environmentally sound use of energy.
We're getting statistics of up to 30% of landfill is demolished buildings. This is not good public policy. And so we're going to see this building as being on the cutting edge in the next 100 years of recycling of our historic resources. It's a totem for the past and it's an icon for the future in that it will represent the merging of environmental concerns with preservation and the concern for a sustainable environment. And I'm going to be very pragmatic now in why I think it's important about a city's competitive edge in the future is its sense of place, its sense of community. Buildings such as this determine our sense of place. They distinguish us from other cities.
There are a lot of things I like about this project that Utilicorp did, but one of the best things is that Utilicorp reached out into the community and involved the public sector, the nonprofit sector, the private sector, all coming together. So everybody participated in this project. And that's the way these projects should work. And so it's one more example of why they deserve to be recognized. It's very stiff competition for these honor awards, but there was great unanimity on the jury picking these awards, saying that this is really a wonderful example of how high tech can really save an old building and put it to a new use. And that's happened. And I congratulate the owners, the architects, all those who had a role in it.
Kansas Cityans are especially pleased about the new life for 20 West 9th. The Visitor Center describes an important part of the city's and nation's histories. Just as important, it preserves an irreplaceable source of beauty for future generations. What will the future bring for 20 West 9th? If it's as interesting as the first 100 years of the building's life, it will be quite a story. One thing is sure, the life of 20 West 9th has been renewed. Once again, it's playing a significant role in a city with an ethic for hard work and a focus on basic values. As the new medallion in the sidewalk in front of the building says, 20 West 9th, built in 1888 and restored for the 21st century.
For a videocassette copy of The Second Life of 20 West 9th, please contact us at 800-459-9733 or at www.kcpt.org.